Domo arigato, Mr. TransBot. This is Sega Masters. We have another Sega card on tap for today's episode, and the titles we've seen released on that format thus far have been less than impressive to say the least. Mostly simple exercises that pale in comparison to what Nintendo was offering on their console around the same time. That trend is not about to change as we're looking at TransBot, a horizontal space shooter that was originally known as Astro Flash in Japan, and possibly renamed for the US market to capitalize on the growing popularity of Hasbro's Transformers franchise. Sega has never confirmed nor denied that suggestion for the record. As is often the case, the backstory behind the shooter is mostly irrelevant. An ancient sentient computer known as Daedalus has gone mad and is looking to dominate the remains of our nuclear war-torn world. Of course, you're somehow the only one that can turn back its army of strange creatures by piloting the CA-214, a special ship with the ability to transform into a fighting robot. Your mission begins with you skimming the surface of this planet, blasting the various generic foes that mindlessly cross your path in predictable patterns. This little carrier van will appear on occasion, and shooting it will unleash a special capsule. Collecting this orb will allow you to activate one of 6 special weapons, depending on which letter you select with the secondary button as it cycles through the choices. While they each have limited ammo, as indicated by the arms meter at the top of the screen, the carrier will appear quite frequently, so you usually won't have to worry about being left with your default pea shooter for too long. A few of the letters will change your ship into robot mode, which just seems there to justify the game's title as it doesn't really do anything too different from your normal ship form, and can even seem like a bigger target for your foes, yet its weapons do more area damage to compensate. It also helps that, unlike most other shooters, just one touch from an enemy or its projectiles doesn't zap you immediately. You have a power meter that acts as a shield, allowing you to absorb a few hits before you perish. The responsive controls are simple to understand, though they lack rapid fire, so some blunt meshing is required to mount any real offense. You're also treated to some solid, vibrantly coded environments and crisp-looking sprites, along with parallax scrolling that does convey a nice sense of speed and depth. However, those who just mindlessly blast everything in your way will eventually start wondering why the stage seems to go on forever without any real ending. As it turns out, you can only advance to the next segment by taking out a certain enemy that's only vulnerable to one specific weapon, otherwise the level loops indefinitely. Unfortunately, neither the game itself nor the manual actually give you any hints of what you need to do, so you're left to just go around in circles until you somehow figure out the right combination to cause something new to happen, which can get quite annoying before too long. Once you somehow randomly deduce, or learn from a strategy guide, that you need to blast the normally indestructible green diamond-like mines with a D weapon, you're finally granted access to the next part of the level, which takes place in this underground corridor. Here you continue your advance, with a tough set of enemies crossing your path that need to be taken out. Outside of the unnecessary puzzle to even unlock this corridor, TransBot's gameplay isn't terribly difficult, though you can suffer a few frustrating deaths. Even then, you're only sent back a short distance should you perish. Both background tunes start out catchy, but can quickly grow monotonous since they only last a few seconds before they loop. The base concludes with a battle against the only boss in the game, a mechanoid that bears more than a passing resemblance to an Imperial Walker from Star Wars. There's nothing terribly exciting about this confrontation as the robot just walks back and forth across the screen, lobbing shots at you, and you merely need to avoid the projectiles and strike its weak point when you have an opening. Connect with enough hits to send this monstrosity to the scrap heap, and your reward, other than an extra life, is getting sent back to the surface and doing the entire process all over again, through the exact same locales, though with slightly harder enemies this time. That's right, despite the early promise shown by some of its features, the entire game is just a single 2-part stage that repeats over and over with no ending, which is especially light even by Sega Card standards, and just 5 minutes is all you need to see everything it has to offer. Everything about this card leaves you feeling that programmers are content to merely do the bare minimum, from the mostly bland shooting action to the fact that they relied on an annoying riddle to stretch out the game's sole level. Even with its shortcomings, TransBot still managed to garner some affection from the Master System community, so much that in 2018, an unofficial remake was crafted for Windows computers by Retro Game Geeks, which, as of this recording, can still be downloaded for free on their website. While the core gameplay remains more or less the same, this new version basically contains triple the content of the original Sega card with 3 distinct levels, each one of which concludes with a unique underground base and a slightly different battle with the walking robot. not to mention a thankfully more obvious path to unlocking the underground base, as all you have to do here is defeat certain enemies and collect the keys they leave behind. Add in some high definition polygonal visuals and a sweet remixed version of the original soundtrack, and it goes without saying that this is the recommended way to play TransBot. As far as the original Master System version goes, unless you're really interested in chasing high scores, TransBot doesn't offer anything that can't be found in the more advanced shooters that have come along since, and is ultimately yet another forgettable Sega Card release that doesn't deserve your time.